Reed explores the success and scandals of the channel and its stars in From Scratch Inside the Food Network. Earlier, I spoke with the author, Alan Salkin. Alan, thanks so much and congratulations on the book. I think a lot of people would be surprised to hear that the Food Network is 20 years old. You write in detail about how the wife of the first Food Network president called the idea for a 24-hour food channel the worst idea I ever heard. So what was food TV like 20 years ago, and how did this network come about?
Well, it's funny because the first president of Food Network who you're talking about is Reese Schonfeld, who was actually also the first president of CNN. So Reese was a guy who thought of Food Network as CNN with stoves. So his idea was to tape many, many new cooking shows every day on an extremely low budget, which CNN, of course, was also in the early days. And it was... no one was really watching back then. No one thought this was a good idea. It wasn't just his wife. And it took about 6 or 7 years before anybody actually started watching the network.
So what happened? 9/11 played a role, right, in the company's success?
People were looking for comfort food, something other than the big story. And what had been built on high-end chefs and careful cooking technique became something where the network was now looking for personalities who could appeal to people like their comforting next-door neighbor, maybe Ina Garten, or Paula Deen, back then a sort of wacky grandmother, Giada De Laurentiis, Rachel Ray. And so the network made a very conscious decision to provide comfort food and something that would soothe you and contribute to the national mood for cocooning.
Now let's talk about Paula Deen, who you just discussed. You wrote about the first scandal of hers when it was revealed she was hiding her diabetes, and then she signed a deal to shill for a diabetes drug, and then of course there's the scandal of using the N-word, admitting that she used it, that ended her deal with the Food Network. Why did they support her during the diabetes episode, but not now?
Well, because she was still under contract then, and they weren't actually supporting her. A lot of journalists, myself included, because I was working on the book then, were getting calls from the head of public relations at the network, Erica Slavin, who was getting consulted by a crisis management guy. And what they were telling reporters was, we had nothing to do with this as a network. This was a surprise to us. She's greedy, and we don't like it. And so when the N-word controversy came about as a result of the lawsuit deposition that became public, and her contract was up, and the network was no longer getting great ratings for those traditional dump and stir cooking shows, the kind that we know from Julia Child, it was kind of an imperfect storm for Paula. And now that the network is a $6 to $10 billion business, expanding internationally into Asia and Africa, it's not the kind of company that can be associated in any way with something as troubling as racism.
We only have time for one more anecdote. I'll give you a choice, and this way hopefully people who see this, who want to hear the other one, will buy your book. Rachel Ray almost burning down a set, or Bobby Flay having to reinvent himself? Tell us whichever one you prefer.
Oh, well, Bobby is the ultimate New York kid survivor who, if you ask him what college he went to, he'll say UCLA, the University of the corner of Lexington Avenue. Bobby has managed to survive for 20 years at this network, and nobody else has, by quietly and coldly figuring out who's in charge, what they want, and how we can deliver it. Ever since I wrote the book, I've started saying to myself at times, what would Bobby Flay do in this situation? He seems to be without neurosis, and anyway, that Rachel story is great too, so please buy the book.
Man, it sounds like Bobby Flay is a great role model. I need to take that advice myself. Alan Salkin.
You're doing great, Jake. Don't worry.
Alan Salkin, thank you so much. The book is From Scratch Inside the Food Network. It is a great read, not just for foodies. Good luck with the book.
An honor.